Part 13 of 25, My Sweet Baby, from Good Little Boys Go to Heaven by Stukin. Summer 1962, Houston, Texas. My sweet baby, gonna hold him in my arms. My sweet baby, gonna hold him in my heart. I heard those two lines, those same two lines over and over again when I was too young to know there were other songs to be sung. My mama sang them to me, only those two lines over and over again. She never told me why those two lines meant so much to her, and I was too young to know to ask. Sometimes I still hear those words being sung to me in my sleep. Sometimes while I'm awake, they cross my mind for no reason. I heard this whole song, My Sweet Baby, in this joint in Houston. It had a slightly different tune, and a man was singing it. His version had quite a different meaning from the one my mama and I sang to each other. I don't know if she even knew the whole thing. She probably wouldn't have sung it if she had. The song was about a man trying to seduce a woman, sang Ho. First two lines were about holding on. The rest were about what the man wanted to be holding on to. Quite a different song, sung Ho. She sang those lines over and over, and as I remember it, she never seemed to tire of singing them. But I got tired of hearing those words sung to me, and I started singing along to her to an end. She varied the melody slightly each time, but the words, those same words I heard sang thousands of times, began to carve an emptiness inside of me. I don't know what they meant to her, but they came to mean nothing but ill to me. The song began as a baby's lullaby, continued as a desperate plea, and ended as a dirge. After she grew too weak to sing, I began singing the song alone to her. It was the plea and then the dirge I sang. She was dying, wasting away. I gave up on trying to hold on to her. She gave up on trying to hold on to life. Her mama died young, and she easily accepted that she was also meant to die young. She had pain. She was really sick. She doubled over in pain so bad she wouldn't be able to make a sound. She screamed to me, but I could hear nothing. It's the nothingness that still echoes in my mind. The doctor my father sent to see her, she wouldn't see. The doctor couldn't try to treat what might have caused her illness, so he just tried to treat her pain. He gave her medicine to help her rest easier. This will ease your pain, but I wish you'd let me try to do more for you. I had no idea what to say to her. I never begged her to let the doctor try to help her. I didn't know. She had it in her mind she was to follow her mama's path, and she put it in my mind as well. I didn't know what a doctor could do for her. She decided she was to die early, and I decided I was to watch her. I've seen sick people helped by the drugs doctors give them. I've seen sick people get better since then, but I didn't know what the doctor might have been able to do to help her. A dirge in the end was what was appropriate. My mother was still a young girl when she had me, 18 years old. I knew her age from her Bible. Angelina Christina Summers, born June 14, 1924, Dallas, Texas. You are blessed. Written on the first page of her Bible. I don't know in whose hand her birth story is written, but I still look at the noting of her birth and tell myself it was her mother's hand. She never told me that, and I never thought to ask. We had no family other than me and her. There was a graveyard where dead relatives lived, but she never showed that she recognized any of them, less one. Her grandma Christina was buried there. My mother told me that Christina died while my mother was heavy with me. We used to place flowers on Christina's grave and on the first of every month. Christina took my mama and her mama, both named Angelina, in after my mama's daddy left. My mama never talked about her father, what he looked like, where he might have gone. I don't remember her mentioning his Christian name. His last name was Summers, the same as my mama, me, and Christina, but I don't think I ever caught his first name. He might as well have been buried, one of the buried dead in the graveyard, though I know he wasn't. My mother, Angie, was 8 when her mama, Angelina, died. She didn't understand what was happening to her mother, only that Angelina was in a lot of pain. For a few years after her mother passed, Auntie said she was sure her grandmother had killed her mother. It was never clear in her head why she thought that, but the thought stayed with her for a short while. After Angelina passed, it was just Angie and her grandma. I don't know where my mother's mother is buried. My mother never mentioned it, and I never thought of asking. I never knew her mother. My mother came to see Christina as second in her role as mother, but Christina was first in her heart. And Christina passed, and I came, and then it was just Angie and me, and then Angie passed, and then it was just me. I was alone. I am alone. I know I'm confusing you because I'm confusing myself, but I just want to get all of this out of my system and hopefully never think about any of it again. These aren't happy memories for me as you might think they'd be. I never had any friends, no friends. My mama taught me to read and write and add and subtract. I don't know why I never went to school. They had schools for Negroes, even in East County, Texas. Mostly I played alone, first with the dog my father got me, and then with a guitar he bought. She never liked the dog, but she almost begged me to learn to play the guitar, like her daddy had. The words, I can still hear my daddy playing a song he wrote just for me, are etched in my memory. I should remember more from 16 years with my mama than I do. There doesn't seem to be much. We go down to the river late at night often. She'd take me in the water, I remember. She taught me to swim. I stopped going when she did. She introduced me to God at the river, or at least she tried to make the introduction. This is where I come to be alone with God, Joey. This is the one place I can always find God. She said she could feel God's presence at the river. I never could. The river was her church of a sort. I would have preferred a church of a different sort. I sit and sometimes wait for the good memories to come to me. Usually it's a fruitless wait. The preacher from the Negro church, the church we would have attended, started coming by about the time my father, Joseph, stopped coming. He'd bring money from my father. My mama called him in, called him Mr. Joseph's preacher. I'm not sure how she meant it. She'd smile when she said it, but it was clear she wasn't amused. The preacher never spoke of my father. He'd hand me the envelope with money in it, ask about my mother, mention that we were welcome in his church at any time, offer to pray with me, and leave. I never found my way into his church. I could have, but I never did out of respect for my mother. I never went to school. We never went to church. The most contact we'd have with anyone was when we'd go into town to fetch groceries and get other things we needed. She'd go into the grocer, buy our things, and not look at anyone or speak to anyone. Everyone who saw her must have thought she was crazy, and they had to have thought the same thing about me. I'd wait out in front of the store until she was done with her getting. Then we'd struggle to carry all the things she had bought on our 5 or 6 mile walk home. That was the only life I knew, but I knew the two of us should not have been so cut off from everything else. I missed not having any kind of relationship with anyone other than my mama. Even though my father would come by and was generally nice to me, there was never anything between him and me. It would have been to my liking if I could have never been there when he came by. Mama used to make me stay there to greet him. I don't know what she was thinking about us three, but even when I was just a kid, I knew it wasn't ever going to happen. I was desperate to spend time with others. The only other person I spent time with was my father, who I couldn't bear to be around. While getting things we needed in town, we saw his proper family, his wife and little girl. We were walking and my mama stopped. I was a few paces ahead of her before I noticed. I stopped and turned to her and found her staring. I looked to see what had caught her attention. She was staring at a short blonde woman with a small blonde girl. I knew who they were. I had never seen them before, but I knew who they were. I grabbed my mother's hand and pulled her along. I was about 10, and the little girl was 3 or 4. My mother finally got the message. She finally understood. Maybe she'd been telling herself they never really existed. They existed. Maybe my father had described them to her because from her reaction, she didn't seem to have ever seen them before. I knew he had another family. I didn't know anything about them, but from what my mother's reaction to them, I guessed it had to be them. She stopped talking to him, but he still came by. I'd leave as he walked through the door. She stopped forcing me to sit with them. I'd come back inside and they'd be sitting, not saying a word. She didn't have much to say to me either. She was lost in herself. He stopped coming by. I noticed that she finally seemed relaxed. I didn't ask her anything. A few weeks later, the preacher started making his visits. On his first visit, he said my father had asked him to come by and check on us. From my mother's reaction, I could tell that she knew my father would not be coming by again. The preacher held out an envelope to my mother. She would not take it. He set it on the kitchen table and said it was my mother's decision what to do with the envelope's contents, but he had to leave it with her. She picked it up and gave it to me. Put this away was all she said. A few months later, she stayed in bed. We lived in a two-room shack. I slept in the main room. She had the bedroom. She always kept strange hours, but I could usually expect her to be up early morning. I didn't think much of her sleeping in. I went about my chores. I went out and came back late in the day. She still hadn't come out into the main room as best I could tell. I heard her calling my name. I went into her room. Mama, you calling me? I asked. Please just do as I ask without asking me nothing, please. She waved me over to her. She had a small coffee can beside her bed, which she pointed to. Please just take this outside and empty it. Please don't ask me no questions. I looked in the can and it was half filled with a dark liquid. I took the can outside and dumped it. I had no idea what the fluid was. I took it back inside and placed it behind my mother's bed. Mama, I have to ask. Please tell me. It was blood. Can you sit up and eat? I'll try to get up, but I don't want to want anything to eat. She tried to sit up, but tears came to her eyes. You have to take something in, Mama. You can't live on air. I'll try to eat, but food messes me up. It took her 2 years to pass. When it happened, I was relieved. For 2 years, I had to look after her, cook the food she mostly couldn't eat, clean away the blood she spat up and the vomit, give her medicine to kill the pain that I feared would kill her every time she went to sleep, and watch her die slowly. I wished every day we had friends. I wish every day we had kin. Every day I wished that I wouldn't have to be alone when she passed. She told my father to stop coming by. She begged the preacher, my father's preacher, to let us be. Every time the preacher came by, I wanted to fall before him and start crying, but I never did. It was just her and me when she passed. I didn't know what to do. For 2 days, I left her in bed. I looked in her every hour or so without any idea of what I was expecting to see. I knew there was someone for me to tell about her passing, but I couldn't think who. I was in a daze. Even after 2 years, I wasn't prepared. I didn't want to tell the preacher because I knew he'd tell my father, and I hoped I'd never have to see my father again. It wasn't my father's fault, but it wasn't my fault either. I wanted to run away from East County, Texas as possible. I told the preacher. I went to his church and told him my mother had passed, and I begged him not to tell my father. I told him I didn't know what to do. All I wanted was to bury my mother quietly and then leave East County, Texas, just as quietly. He said the church would pay for my mother's burial and he'd contact the mortician. It was 2 days before she was laid in the ground next to her grandmother. The preacher spoke and said words that were probably far too kind. We aren't all saints when we die. His words were far too kind. I loved her, but she wasn't a saint. She made bad choices, and she paid for them, and I paid for them. There was no marker placed on her grave. I needed every cent I had since saved to leave. The mortician asked about a marker. I told him to leave her grave unmarked. I said no one cared about her grave but me, and I would never forget where she was buried. It was my full intention to come back later and put a proper marking on her grave, even though no one would ever come to look for the place she was buried. She was dead to the world, forgotten to all, except for me. My sweet baby, gonna hold her in my arms. My sweet baby, gonna hold her in my heart.